Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. In this audio, I'm going to speak about whether it's worth learning PHP in 2024. Um, and I think this video is going to be valid for a couple more years, but let's say whether it's worth learning PHP in this moment or not. Um, so PHP has always had a huge market. You if you go to the job site and start looking for PHP or some of the frameworks that PHP offers, you're gonna see so many jobs. That in itself is a good reason to start learning, because when you want to learn a technology, um, you wanna make sure that it gives you something back, right? So learning PHP is not that difficult, but if you compare that to something like Go and other languages that has specific purpose, you're gonna very quickly realize that PHP is pretty easy to learn, and the market is quite big for PHP developers as well. One thing that I'd like to say about PHP is that because it's used for web development mostly, you don't have to have knowledge of other industries too much. So for example, let's look at Python, okay? If you learn Python, um, yes, there is web development jobs, but the market is very confusing because Python is always also used for many other things, for data science, okay, to analyze the data, to clean it, um, machine learning, and all that. So you don't learn just Python. You'd learn the other um, things as well. You have to need to know a lot of maths and all that. So it gets confusing, but if it's just PHP that you're learning, you know it's going to be mostly used for web development, building APIs, creating backend systems. So you know the direction you're going in, but compared to other languages, you don't know. Okay, so Python's market is confusing. If you start looking at it, it might look like Python has so many more jobs, but that's because Python the jobs that require Python are sort of hybrid jobs. They require understanding of many other fields as well. So just learning Python is not going to get you too far, while learning PHP can get in very easily can get you jobs in web dev. Okay, so that's one thing. You gotta always look at the market when you're looking at these things, this technology or that technology, whether there is a market or not. Obviously, learning for understanding and becoming a better dev or programmer is always worth it. But if you want quick results, you got to look at the market because you want that money coming in at some point, right? You don't have 10 years to learn something. Okay, so that's what I think about PHP. You got to keep the market in your mind all the time. Then, like I said, PHP is pretty easy to learn as well. um it's pretty easy to set up the server. It's pretty easy to just start doing development. It's pretty easy to create APIs, creating connections with the database, and all that stuff. So because it's easy to learn, you can master it very quickly. Okay, and after you master the language itself, you can start mastering other things. So for example, if you want to build finance application, then you can start learning about finance, accountancy, numbers, maths that's required in those fields. Okay, you'll free up your mind from PHP, and then you can learn other things. That's the advantage of a language that's easy to learn. You don't have to focus too much on the language. You can focus on the other things that will supplement the language. So yeah, it's very easy to learn. Then there is a huge support. um that's the third point. There's a huge support for PHP. There's a huge market for PHP. It's easy to learn, but there's also huge support. There's a huge community of PHP developers on Stack Overflow, elsewhere. Obviously, you got ChatGPT as well now, so it's easy to find resources. It's easy to find good resources. It's easy to find good books, and so it just makes your life easy as well. If you get stuck, you can easily find things. Now, this is not true with everything. Many other languages, it's so difficult to find support because these languages are mostly targeted um, towards people who already have a lot of experience, and their current language that they use for project is not doing the job. There's little hole there that is can only be filled by using a different language, and these are specific languages. For example, some languages are help you with concurrency, right? And some languages are really fast. Some languages are um, it makes sense if you compile your code. These are languages that are specific. Okay, so because it's so specific, the level of support you get in the community goes down. People don't know too much, and the people who do know a lot are using it professionally, are not in the market supporting other people. They're doing their job. That's what they're focused on. Okay, so the support for PHP is quite large, and obviously if you add the frameworks as well, then it becomes even larger. And PHP also teaches you a lot of other things. It teaches you how things work in the server, setting up the server like nginx, apache, um, how you can tweak things. It teaches you about memory, so if you need to expand memory, how you're going to expand. um, it kind of teaches you pretty much everything you need to know about web development. And then obviously if you want to take that knowledge that you learn from PHP, you can take it elsewhere. Now, when I say knowledge that you got from PHP, it's not just PHP specific knowledge. It's knowledge of network. It's knowledge of queries. It's knowledge of how databases work and all that. So you can take all that knowledge, um, and then start building software in a different language. So that's another advantage. Um, so I think the jobs bit I've already covered. There's a huge job market. And then last but not least, PHP is pretty easy to learn. It's a fun language to learn. It's not gonna throw you errors for silly things. um you have to define a type. You have to define what this variable can contain, and it can't contain anything else. um you don't have that issue. Well, it's not an issue, it's an advantage for some people, but you don't have those sort of things because they kind of become a blocker when you are just starting to learn PHP. So those are the things I think are important. It's pretty easy to learn, and then there is obviously great frameworks there. I think Laravel is pretty popular in PHP. If you learn something like Python, you got Django. But learning PHP is pretty good still, I think. And then obviously you build a few projects, you get a job, you spend some years building stuff in PHP, then it's going to be so much easier to transition to different languages. Obviously there is some people who will tell you learn something like C, okay, and then it'll be so much easier to transition to different language. I understand what that means, but if you look C, for example, in context of web development, okay, the transition is not so easy. Yes, syntax wise, the methodologies of C, writing clean code, and all those things are going to be transferable, but web development is it's a whole different beast. Okay, this is why a lot of people who build software in computer for computers, for example, they can't just join a company that mostly builds stuff for web dev, builds API and all that, and just kill it. They can't do that. They will need time. So I think PHP is a good language to learn. um the market is still decent, so if you want to learn PHP, go for it.